first day.
Okay, so again, this wasn't the actual physical light, as we're going to see when we read down a little further and get to the fourth day. But yet it says the evening and the morning were the first day. So, you probably wondering how's their evening and the morning without any real light being created yet. But what God is doing is showing us how to count days here. So the day begins with the evening and it ends when the sun goes down again. So like we know, the Sabbath comes in Friday night. Even though man named the days later on, we know Friday's still, the sixth day going into the seventh. So at sundown on Friday, the Sabbath begins and ends at sundown on Saturday. So basic lesson. What verse you at?
Verse 6.
Go ahead.
And God said, let there be firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so.
And what do you call it?
And God called the firmament heaven.
Okay, so this firmament we read about, this is division God placed in there really. He called it heaven. And this is what we know the Bible speaks of three heavens. As we're going to find out, this is the one we know as space. It's our whole solar system, the whole universe. Because we're going to see he's going to put the physical lights up in this firmament. So it said that he put this firmament in the midst of the waters. I ain't going to get off into a creation lesson, but I remember back in 2009, 2010, I had seen a creation lesson and kind of was just getting a little understanding. And the brother drew out a diagram from, Genesis 1. And, he put the firmament, this division, which he calls the heavens, in the middle of the water. Because that's what it said. He put it in the midst of the waters, and he let it divide the waters from the waters, at verse 6. So then when he drew the earth inside of it and everything, he was confidently pointing like outside of space. He was like, all these scientists looking for water, I can show them where the water is, it's out here. And he pointing to like the outside of it. And I was kind of dumb, like, there's water out there, like, sure enough, a few months later, because I kind of was into science, when I was younger. And a few months later, NASA had discovered, like, basically on the outside of the universe, they said it was like 15 billion light years away. They, like more water than they ever found anywhere. They said it was like 140 trillion times the amount of water we have on Earth. And I was like, man, that was like the Lord just showing me something directly, because, he knew I was kind of caught up on that. But he said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Go ahead.
And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
So we always see the days, he letting us know, begin with the evening and the morning. And this is how days used to be counted. We know Rome has changed pretty much everything having to do with Christianity, or have tried to, and the world has followed that. And we know the holidays is pagan, they deal with false gods, but because they've been around so long before people was counting 12 a.m. as a new day, that a lot of them start with an evening, right? They got New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, and we don't deal with that stuff. Again, that's idolatry. But because they've been around so long, they still hinting at when a new day begins. So go ahead and skip down to verse 14.
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and years.
Okay, so now we see that he's putting these lights in the firmament. So again, that first light, that wasn't the physical light we see when we look outside. It comes from the sun. Because it said, now God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. This is how man keeps track of time to this day. Alright, but now the Lord uses both the lights, the sun and the moon, And, we know that his holy days, pretty much, we call it a lunar calendar. The Lord's days begin, or his months begin with a new moon. When we don't see any moon in the sky, that's when it's a new month. And they both even have the same etymology. They got the same origin, month and moon, when you trace them back. But what verse?
We have verse 15.
Go ahead.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
All right, so now let's go into chapter 2 and pick it up at verse 1. And we're going to get into this seventh day. Go ahead.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day, and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made.
Okay, so this is what God did on the seventh day. And as we're going to see, all of this is pointing at something, because God's holy days, not holidays, they don't really teach you anything about God's plan for salvation. But God's holy days are teaching us about what he's doing with mankind. And he rested on the seventh day, and that's why we are doing the same thing. He committed that to his creation. Because like God says, be ye holy, for I am holy, right? So he made this day holy, he rested on it, and by doing the same thing, we try and take place in that holiness. Alright, so it said, on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day. Does it mean like he had to rest, like he was tired, he did that? No. But again, this is symbolic, because everything he did, he didn't create man in his image for no reason. He's doing something with man. Man is going to end up becoming just like God, as most of us know in here. And that's why everything in the creation, he said, is going to produce after his own kind. The herb yielding seed, the fruit tree, and all that, we didn't read it. He said, whose seed is in itself. That was back in chapter 1. He said, his seed is in itself. It's going to produce after its own kind. The whales and the fish, after their own kind. The cattle and the creeping things, the beasts of the field. Then he get the man, and he say, let us, more than one, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So it's a reason he made man in his image and gave him dominion over everything, the creation that he made, all the animals. And it's a reason why he rested the seventh day and told man to do the same thing. But let's move on to Exodus chapter 16. We're just going to walk down this Sabbath and rightly divide the word of truth, as the Bible says. We know we got to read it here a little and there a little to make it make sense. Exodus chapter 16, and pick it up at verse 1.
And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger.
Okay, so now it's just a couple months after God adopted this nation of people into, he said even, when he sent Moses down to speak to Pharaoh, he said, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. So this is just a couple months after he had brought them out of Egypt, as we see the 15th day, the second month. And Israel, they murmuring, complaining, really against the Lord, but they think it's against Moses. But go ahead.
Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, and I may prove them, and whether they will walk in my law or no.
Okay, because the Lord is teaching his people already as he brings them out to trust in him for everything. And he lets you know that over in Deuteronomy 8, that he suffered them to hunger to prove them whether they was going to keep his commandments or no. He said, because man don't live by bread only, right? But by every word that proceed out of the mouth of God. Because it don't matter how healthy we eat, we all going to die, right? So he letting them know to just rely on him for everything, and just listen to what he says. But again, we see, all throughout the Bible, Israel was kicking against what the Lord was trying to do with them. So what verse?
Verse 5.
Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.
Okay, so now the Lord had started raining down this bread from heaven to feed the children of Israel. And he said on the 6th day, they were going to bring in twice as much. Go ahead.
And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, At evening, then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out of the land of Egypt.
Okay, skip down to verse 13. So up until then, the Lord had told them to gather a omer. I think that's like 4 pints of something dry. Think of like a blueberry pint. And they had all gathered. It said some less, some more. But when they measured it, they all had a homer, what they were supposed to gather. But now on the 6th day, they all went out. They had twice as much. So they ran and told Moses, and we're going to find out what this was about. Skip down to 13 and go ahead.
And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay round about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat.
And even this is pointing at something, because we know Christ said when he came in the New Testament, I am that bread that came down from heaven, right? He said, your fathers ate bread in the wilderness and are dead. But this is the true bread. So everything the Lord do is really, it has significance to it. But it said when the children of Israel said one to another, they called it manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. 16.
This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered, some more, some less. And when they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating.
Go ahead.
And Moses said, Let no man leave of it till the morning.
I know it ain't on there, but throw 20 in there too.
Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses.
So they didn't listen, no surprise, right? They already was wanting to go back, wishing they had died in Egypt. I mean, you alive and hungry, I think that's better than being dead in Egypt with some food. But anyway, Moses told them not to leave any of it till the morning. And he said, notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but what?
But some of them left of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was wroth with them.
Okay, because again, this was all Moses was just telling them what the Lord said, because this was at their request. When the Lord, as we're going to see, you know, I ain't going to jump the gun because it's in here. So it didn't listen. It bred worms and stank. Go ahead and skip it. You know what? Keep reading.
And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun waxed hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, This is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord.
Okay, so he hadn't really given them his commandments and stuff yet, but he's showing them about this Sabbath ahead of time. So on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much. And he said, This is that which the Lord has said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. What they supposed to do?
Bake that which ye will bake today, and seed that ye will seed.
Okay, so the seed is the boil. So he said, do your cooking and your boiling today, because as it says, it's not in the lesson, but in Exodus 35 and 3, I believe, it says not to kindle any fire upon the Sabbath day in all your dwellings. And it seems to be pertaining to cooking, because we know, modern technology, you use your car, you create combustion just to get to the Sabbath day, but you got to have a holy convocation. But he specifically let them know to boil what you're going to boil and bake what you're going to bake the day prior, and he gave them twice as much on that day. Go ahead.
And that which remaineth overlaid up for you to be kept until the morning.
Hey, whatever is left over, he said, this day you can lay it up for you till the morning. Go ahead.
And they laid it up till the morning, as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein.
Okay, so now this is the only day they could leave some over to the next day and it wouldn't breed worms. And again, he got man doing what he did, because as we read in the beginning, God rested from his works on the 7th day. So on the 6th day, after he delivered his people out of captivity in Egypt, he was teaching them about resting on the Sabbath. But what did some of them do? Go ahead.
And Moses said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field, 6 days ye shall gather. But on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day for to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath. Therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day.
Okay, so yeah, I think that was supposed to be a 29 on this page. But we see that he was showing them the Sabbath. Now we're going to skip over a couple of chapters to where he gives them his commandments. Exodus chapter 20. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 20 and 1. And when you're ready, go ahead.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth.
Okay, so God now is speaking directly to the children of Israel, and he had told them 3 days prior, that he was going to come down and in the sight of all the people, and they didn't see anything when he appeared unto them. They just saw clouds and fire and smoke and lightning and thunder, and the mountain was quaking. You could read all that in the previous chapter, even probably some of it a little further down. But he's given them the 10 Commandments, as we know. So the first one, he said, I am the Lord thy God that have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And that's what Egypt represents in a lot of places in the Bible. Sometimes it ain't even talking about the actual country. It's just talking about the house of bondage. Because he told Israel if they didn't listen to his commandments, he said, I'm going to bring you into Egypt again with ships, where you're going to be sold as bondmen and bondwomen, slaves basically. But he had already said twice in that chapter, you're going to scatter them into all nations. You're going to remove them into all kingdoms. So Egypt is what it represented to them, the house of bondage, slavery in other words. And he said, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Now he said, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Y'all know this commandment ain't even in the Catholic Bible, right? They took this one completely out, because they had to get rid of all them statues to follow it. But, go ahead, verse 5.
Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me.
Okay, because the Lord, again, he basically married his people all throughout the Bible. He compares his relationship with the church as a marriage. Jesus' relationship with the church. And this is who this is talking, contrary to popular belief. This was Christ dealing with them before he came as a man. So again, when we get further into the lesson, we're going to see ain't nothing changed when he died on the cross as far as pertaining to the Sabbath day. He ain't come and changed the Sabbath day, Sunday, and nor did he rise on a Sunday, which is the reason they usually give for why they go to church on that day. But he said not to bow down to these images, because he's a jealous God. Doing what? Verse 6.
And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh him his name in vain.
Okay, so now we can read in the Bible and say all the commandments, the laws, they all hang on 2 commandments: loving the Lord with all your heart and loving your neighbor as yourself. So we see he's starting off telling us how to love him. Right? He said not to have any other gods before him, make any graven images, and bow down to him, and not to take his name in vain. What else?
Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy.
So right there, it's the 4th commandment. He didn't even get to dealing with your neighbor yet. Because again, all of these are based on loving God and loving your neighbor. That's what they're showing you how to do. So the first 4 is teaching us how to honor God. And he said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Because remember, he hallowed and blessed it back in the beginning, right? Verse 10.
Verse 9.
Go ahead.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work.
Go ahead.
Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates.
Alright, so you ain't supposed to work, you ain't supposed to have nobody else working, not even the animals, right? And again, this is what we saw God do back in the beginning. So he said, but the 7th day. So he keep reiterating it's the 7th day. It don't sound like it's any day. whenever you want to honor God, you just do it. He keep reiterating this, and again, if it was just any day, we didn't read it, but a man in the next book that we go to, well, actually in Numbers 15, we know a man was stoned to death just for gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. So if it was any day, he would have something to say at the resurrection, I'm sure. Because this is the type of stuff people tell you. Sabbath is any day or it's every day. But again, you can't work on the Sabbath, right? How are you going to eat if it's every day? So just some logical questions to ask. Because again, thou shalt not do any work, nor thou, he said, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates. Go ahead.
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
Okay, and we read that. So we see he's commanding Israel to do the same thing that he did, and it's the only nation that God dealt with. Jesus himself come thousands of years later and is talking to a Samaritan woman at the well in John chapter 4 and tells her point blank, you worship you know not what. He said, y'all worshiping something else. He said, we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. It's the only people God dealt with in the Bible. But it wasn't only for them. He was teaching them so that they could teach the rest of the nation. He said, even in chapter 19, if you don't know, and you still got your place there, let's read verse 5 in chapter 19.
Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people.
Why is that?
For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation.
So this is what Israel would have been had they obeyed the Lord's commands. He said, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. So again, if the whole kingdom is priests, who are they teaching? God just really had to come and teach the teachers so they could give it to the rest of the children, the sons of Adam, if you will. Because he made everybody from one blood, right? Everybody come from Adam and Eve. Even Eve come from Adam. So everybody from one blood. So again, it wasn't just for Israel. Even, there was some strangers with Israel right here in Exodus 20. Because it lets us know in the 12th chapter that when they were leaving out of Egypt, it was a mixed multitude that left out. But he only dealt with his people, so some other nation can't just come along a couple thousand years later and say, oh, we're going to do it on Sunday now. They're doing something completely different. They're not serving this same God. Alright? And he said, have no other gods before me. Because he's a jealous God. So obviously it matters how you worship this God. Alright, but let's go to the next place. Isaiah chapter 58. Isaiah 58. And we're going to pick it up at verse 13. Isaiah 58 and 13. When you're ready, go ahead.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words.
And I know that one can be kind of tough, not speaking your own words, because it's easy to get caught up in conversation. But the goal of this day is we honoring God. And we doing exactly what he commanded us to do. He said not to do your own pleasures, this should be a delight. And I know, in the beginning, you kind of might feel like you're missing out on stuff that's been in the world, but eventually, once you've been in it a while, you start to look forward to resting on this day.
That's right.
Every week you get the Wednesday and like, man, where's Saturday?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So he said, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, called the Sabbath of delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then what?
Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed them with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
Okay. So again, he's saying, and the Sabbath is so important to the Lord. He told Israel that if they would have just kept the Sabbath day, he would have let them stay in the land. Even though they was committing all type of sins, he had it written, I think it's Jeremiah 17, that if they would have just kept the Sabbath day, they could have stayed in the land forever. So again, this day is very important to the Lord. And he promised, he said, if a person keep the Sabbath right, he said, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father. Because again, like we just read in Exodus 19, Israel would have been blessed. They would have been above all people had they just kept God's commandments. So he's like, hey, you just keep the Sabbath day. And a lot of people are starting to wake up. We know God got a work to do with his people. And they might not have the whole knowledge yet, but a lot of us starting to realize who Israel is, as we know through the past week. And, about the Sabbath day. So let's go on to the next place. We're going to go over the Numbers. That's why I don't do social media.
That's a lot of free publicity, too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he ain't the only one.
Yeah, I mean, they going in cute. I mean,
Yeah,
wait it out.
true indeed. And it's exactly what the Lord is going to do. The valley of dry bones, indeed. Numbers 14, we're going to pick it up at verse 1.
And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, would God that we had died in the land of Egypt?
Again, they back up. Go ahead.
Or would God we had died in the wilderness? And wherefore hath the Lord brought us unto this land to fall by the sword?
Okay, so this is when the Lord had them about to go into the land that he had promised to Abraham and his descendants. So they had come up with, what could have been a good plan strategically. Moses, he let them go through with it, and they sent, some people to go spy out the land and just, see what type of land it was, I guess how to best approach it. But, the key is they weren't doing this on their own. The Lord was fighting for them. He had just delivered them from the most powerful nation, probably on the planet at the time. So he was fighting for them, and he told them he was going to deliver this land into their hands. He was going to cast out the inhabitants of this land. But they went and spied it out for 40 days, and they coming back with this report about the land to give to Moses. So what verse?
Verse 3.
Go ahead.
And wherefore hath the Lord brought us into this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be bred? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt?
So, they went down to the land and it was like, well, it's a good land. Well, we're going to read it just a little. It's in here. Go ahead.
And they said one to another, let us make a captain and let us return into Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron,
keep reading. Yeah, wherever you
Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't have it in there, but go ahead and read down Well, read verse 7.
And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is an exceeding good land.
So the land was good, but they said the people of the land was real big. It was like grasshoppers to them. You know, they had lost faith in the Lord and, you know, thought they was doing it on their own. And the Lord, you know, he wasn't pleased with it. Skip down to verse 11 and read.
And the Lord said unto Moses, how long will this people provoke me? And how long will it be they believe me? For all the signs which I have showed among them.
All right, the Lord poured out 10 plagues on Egypt and split the Red Sea, had to walk through on dry land. He's like, how long is it going to be till they believe me? So they were scared to go into the land. The ones that came back, it said they brought an evil report. They kind of, you know, lowered the morale of everybody so that they didn't want to go into the land. Go ahead.
I will smite them with pestilence and disinherit them, and will make of thee a greater nation and mightier than they.
Okay, so again, the Lord had inherited this people, but this is what happens when you disobey God, he disinherits you. Alright, so he said to Moses, he's going to make of him a greater and mightier nation than they, because he still had to keep the promise he made to Abraham, right? He said that Abraham's seed was going to inherit this land, and Moses come out of Abraham, so he's like, I'm going to just make another nation out of you, Moses. Let's go ahead, skip down to verse 19 and read.
Pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according unto the greatness of thy mercy.
All right, so now this is Moses pleading on behalf of the people because he was kind of a forerunner, a predecessor of Jesus. He was an intercessor. He interceded on behalf of the people with the Lord, asking him to forgive them. So he said, pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according unto the greatness of thy mercy, and what?
And as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt even until now.
Right, because they, you know, go ahead. Y'all know how Israel was. They've been murmuring since they came out. Moses up there getting the commandments. They down there making a golden calf after they had already said, whatever the Lord said, we're going to do. So he said, you know, hey, Lord, just bear with them. As you have been from Egypt until now. Go ahead.
And the Lord said, I have pardoned according to thy word. But as truly as I live,
what?
All the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord.
So he said, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. Now this ain't talking about, you know, if they would have went to the land. He's talking way down in the future. Because even the promise he made to Abraham never got it in his lifetime, right? And it lets us know that even in the New Testament. Even the land, you know, the markers that he gave Abraham of where the land was going to be. The borders of Israel never been that big, from the Nile River to the river Euphrates. So this was all future, the promises that he gave to Abraham, but he was going to bring Israel into the land at this point. Alright. What verse?
Verse 22.
Go ahead.
Because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice.
Don't look like, you know, unconditional love, right? He like, hey, he getting fed up. He like, they tempted me these 10 times. Now what's he say? 23.
Surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoke me see it.
Okay, so he said they ain't going to see the land. Now, we're going to see that this is true, right? We're going to see, hey, they all end up dying in the wilderness, the ones that was 20 and under. Skip down to verse 29. He going to say it.
Your carcass shall fall in the wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me, doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun.
All right, so they were only two that was over 20 that he said going to make it in the land, because as they were bringing this evil report back, it was like, nah, y'all tricked us. The Lord was going to fight for us. Just follow what he's telling us to do. And the Lord heard that. So he said, they the only ones under 20 that's going to make it into the land. Y'all carcass is going to fall in the wilderness. And as we know, Israel wandered around in the wilderness for 40 years until that was fulfilled. But now we're going to find out, not only was they not going to enter into the land right here, but they lost the privilege to something else. Was that it?
Verse
31.
But your little ones, which ye say should be a grave, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcass, they shall fall in this wilderness.
Alright, so he said, he just reiterated they're going to die in the wilderness. Now let's go over to Psalm 95. We're going to read something about this same time. But like I mentioned, not only were they not going to make it into the land at that point, but we're going to see that they lost the ability to make it in at another point also. And this is where the understanding that what the Sabbath represents comes into play. Because again, you know, God's holy days, they teaching us about what he's doing with mankind. And we're going to see that shortly. But Psalm 95, and pick it up at verse 6.
Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker.
Go ahead.
For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, and the sheep of his land. And today, if ye will hear his voice,
What?
harden not your hearts.
So notice what he said. He said, today, if you will hear his voice. What do you mean? Back, 3,000 so years ago when David was writing Psalms? No. Whatever day you hear the word of God, that's the day he's talking about. But now notice he said, today, if you will hear his voice, what?
Harden not your heart.
Don't harden your heart. Don't be stiff-necked or hard-headed as what?
As in the provocation, as in the day of the temptation in the wilderness.
Oh, because that is them people that we just read, that God said tempted them 10 times, now their carcass is going to fall in the wilderness. He said, don't be like them. Go ahead.
When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my word.
How long?
40 years long was I grieved with this generation.
And what did he say?
And said, it is a people that do err in their heart. And they have not known my ways.
Now notice we read what we read back in Numbers, but what is he going to say here? Verse 11.
Unto whom I swear in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest.
Hold up. Now he said, unto whom I swear in my wrath that they not going to enter into my rest. What is this rest talking about? Because now we read back in Genesis, right, that the Lord, he ceased from all his works on the seventh day. He rested from all his works. And now we saw where he was about to bring Israel into the land. And, they didn't have the faith. They didn't believe that God was going to deliver the land into it. And he said, hey, don't pardon them on your behalf, Moses. But he said, hey, surely as I live, the whole earth is going to be full of the glory of the Lord. Now that wasn't going to be at that time when they got into the land. That was talking way in the future. But when he told them that they were going to die in the wilderness, and he also said they're not going to enter into his rest. So again, when did this rest take place? Was it all the way back in Genesis? Was it when they was going to get into the land? But now David is telling us, whenever we hear the word of God, don't harden our heart. Because this rest, as we're going to find out, is future still. And we got a chance to enter in. Let's go over to Hebrews chapter 3. Hebrews, the 3rd chapter. And we're going to pick it up when the pages stop turning at verse 16. Because again, now we're reading about this rest. And we know this is what God did on the 7th day. So we're going to see by the end of this lesson the significance of the Sabbath, what it represents. And, you know, how we have a chance to get into this rest, even here and now today. Why we rested on this day. Verse 16, go ahead.
For some, when they had heard, did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses, but with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness?
Yeah, 40 years. He was grieved with them, walking around, murmuring against the Lord, until they died, right? So we know what we talk about, same time we just read about, back in Numbers. Same thing David was referred to in Psalms. Go ahead.
And to whom swear ye that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believe not?
Go ahead.
So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief.
Because again, they didn't believe that the Lord was going to deliver this land into their hands. And they had been tempting the Lord. It just got up to this point where now we find out he's even said that they're not going to enter into his rest. And the writer of Hebrews is going to make it plain just by process of deduction that this ain't talking about something in the past. We're going to go right into chapter 4 verse 1. Go ahead.
Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it.
So why are they still talking about this in the New Testament? If it's something that was, to happen back then. If it's something that happened even back in Genesis. He's telling us even here today, let us therefore fear, lest the promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. Go ahead.
For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it.
See, and this is, part of what a lot of people don't understand. They think that faith is just belief in whatever. They don't understand. You got to apply it to the word of God. You can't say, I got faith and I ain't got to do nothing. Your works is going to show your faith, right? So he said, for unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them, at verse 2. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. Go ahead.
For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world.
So he's pointing out that the rest was back then in Genesis, but now he's saying, hey, we that believe do enter into rest, even though he rested on the 7th day. Go ahead.
For he spake in a certain place of the 7th day on this wise, and God did rest the 7th day from all his works.
Okay, so now we read that back in Genesis. That's how we speak about the 7th day back in Genesis. God did rest from all his works. And what else?
And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest.
And then in another place, he said, if they shall enter into my rest. So what do we get? What do we get from all this? Go ahead.
Seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief.
So as we put the pieces together, we see that, hey, really it's still a rest in the future. That's what he's letting us know. Because there's still some people that got to enter into it. And the ones in the wilderness, he said, they not going to get into his rest. He said he swore in his wrath that they wasn't going to enter in. And we know they didn't make it into the land. But again, this is even talking about much further, closer to our time, we'll say. It's still future. Go ahead.
Again, he limited a certain day, saying in David, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice.
Okay, because now we was reading in Numbers how they all died in the wilderness, and a lot of time passed from then until David wrote Psalms. So that's why he's saying again, he limited a certain time, saying in David, this was in Psalms, written by David, today, after so long a time. Because again, we know they died in the wilderness, but hey, obviously he wasn't talking about the wilderness being the rest. That if they would have made it in the land at that time, that's not what he was talking about. Because he had David to write today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Go ahead.
For if Jesus had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God.
Okay, so he said, hey, there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. Go ahead.
For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works, as God did from his.
All right, so this is all showing us the Sabbath, how God did back in the beginning on the seventh day. It's all pointing to a rest that we can make it into by ceasing from our own works. Go ahead.
Let us labor, therefore, to enter into that rest.
So it looked like we still got to do some works, though. He said just not our own works, right? Because he said, let us labor, therefore, to enter into that rest, lest what?
Lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief.
Okay, we're going to go over to Colossians. Because again, now we see that this is talking about that there remaineth a rest still to the people of God, right? We just read that. We read that if they'd had rest back then, he wouldn't have brought it up again later on. So let's go over to Colossians chapter 2 and pick it up at verse 16 and find out what these holy days are about. Colossians 2 and 16. When you're ready, go ahead.
Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of any holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days.
And some people, they might try to come here and justify doing a holidays, but we see this isn't what this is talking about. He said holy day. And that's where the word holiday even comes from. That's how crafty Satan is. He just take out the Y and put an I. That's thinking it got something to do with God. And he had changed everything. But the holidays, they ain't based on no new moon or anything, right? Nah, they fixed, right on the calendar, same place. They try to kind of do Easter kind of like the Passover. But, that's worshiping some fertility god. So this talking about God's holy days. He's saying don't let nobody judge you, because people are going to look at you funny when you tell them they're keeping the Passover, you're keeping the Sabbath day. Oh, you Jewish or something? Like, come on. It's God's holy days. Why I gotta be, you gotta try to put me in the box of doing what the Bible says. So he said, let no man judge you in meat or in drink, because, they feast days. And he even said you can drink on these days. He said you can have strong wine, you can have wine and strong drink. He said, or in respect of a holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days. What are they? Verse 17.
Which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ.
So these holy days, these Sabbath days, he said, they a shadow of things to come. And they point to Christ. That's what they're teaching us about. So again, this Sabbath day, as we just read in Hebrews, is pointing to something future. It's pointing even to the time when Christ is going to return. Let's go over to 2 Peter. Chapter 3. 2 Peter 3 and verse 8. When you're ready, go ahead.
But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing.
What's that?
That one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day.
Oh, so now when we look at the creation, maybe it could make a little more sense. When we get to that seventh day, that God rested. So we see that a day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. And Peter really is making a point here how the world, as time goes on and all these false prophets keep predicting the end of the world and it don't come, people they start to become like mockers, like the world just gonna keep on spinning forever, the same way it has been. They just stop believing, but he's like, look, this ain't been no time to God. Like a day to him, that's 1,000 years to us. He's making that point, but we're gonna see that this is a fact. Let's go look at it. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 20. Because he says 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh is the Sabbath of rest. That's why we know it couldn't change. Ain't even get here yet. As we're about to see, it's pointing to something in the future, like we read. The holy days, the Sabbaths, are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. Didn't even get here yet. This is dealing with Christ at his second return. Let's read it though. Revelation 20 and verse 4.
And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years.
Okay, so now John is looking at this vision, and he sees people that lost their lives for the word of God, for the witness of Jesus. We see even some of these things it's talking about. They hadn't worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither have received his mark upon their foreheads. And we know this stuff is dealing with a time known as the Great Tribulation, where this man of sin, as the Bible calls him, he's going to prevail over the saints for a short period of time. So this is even after that what John is looking at. Because some of these people he's looking at lost their lives during that period. But he say that they lived and reigned with Christ for how long?
1,000 years.
1,000 years. How long is that to God?
A day.
A day, right? Simple and plain. That's what the Sabbath is pointing to. When the Lord return and judge, what we're going to find out. This is the first resurrection. These people really being judged now. We're hoping to be a part of this first resurrection. These are the saints right here. They're going to live and reign with Christ for 1,000 years when he returns. Go ahead.
But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death had no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.
Okay, so now we understand the Sabbath can't change, because that's why it's the seventh day. Because at the end of time, the Lord is going to return, and his first resurrection is going to take place. And those that make it into this first resurrection going to live and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. Let's see where they're going to be at. He even said he saw thrones here, because this is part of what he promised to Peter. When he asked him, saying, hey, Lord, we forsake it all and follow thee. I think it's Matthew chapter 23, or it might be 19, if I'm not mistaken. But he said, we have forsaken all and followed after thee. What we going to have, therefore? And Jesus said, in the regeneration, like ye which have followed me, you're going to have 100-fold everything that you lost. Houses and, brethren, wives, and lands, and, all of that. But he said, and you're going to sit on 12 thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what he told his disciples. So he's saying here, I saw thrones and judgment. It didn't say they stood in judgment. He said judgment was given unto them. They actually judging. Because the Bible even let us know, it said that the saints going to even judge angels. They said the world going to be judged by the saints. So that's what this is talking about. And it's all during this seventh day. Let's go over to Psalm 132. We're going to see where this is taking place at. The 132nd Psalm. And pick it up at verse 13. Psalm 132 and 13. When you're ready, go ahead.
For the Lord hath chosen Zion.
The Lord hath chosen Zion. It's talking about Jerusalem. Go ahead.
He hath desired it for his habitation. This is my rest forever. Here will I dwell.
That's right.
For I have desired it.
So you're not going to dwell up in heaven? He said, the Lord hath chosen Zion. He hath desired it for his habitation. He said, this is my rest forever. We ain't going up to heaven according to the Bible. Maybe the second heaven. Because we know people are going to meet up in the clouds. The firmament, as we read it, called back in Genesis. But, hey, what the world don't understand, they coming right back down to earth. Because, again, you get to Revelation 11, when the Lord gave here, it say the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and Savior. And it's Christ, right? Yeah. I might paraphrase a little bit, but Jesus is coming back to take over this world, basically. You can't read nothing else in the Bible. So this is why we got to line it up here a little, there a little, because it says all over the book. But again, notice he mentioned his rest here, and he said he's going to dwell here forever. He said, this is my rest forever. Here will I dwell. And it's this first resurrection, this rest that we read about those carcasses that fell in the wilderness not being able to enter into. They're going to have to wait a whole 1,000 years and be judged at what the world like to call the white throne judgment. Alright, and then ain't no guarantees you're going to make it. That's why he said those that made the first resurrection, they blessed, and the second death had no part. They have no power over them. Alright, where we off to?
Verse 14.
We read it, right?
No,
You can read it again.
This is my rest forever. Here will I dwell, for I have desired it.
Alright, let's go over to Isaiah. So, just to make sure, this is talking about Jerusalem, because it says Zion. And most people understand that's talking about Israel, but they still like to use that term today, referring to it. It's just whole different people over there. Isaiah chapter 65, and pick it up at verse 19. Go ahead.
And I will rejoice in Jerusalem.
Where?
Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem, and what else?
And joy in my people, and the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, nor the voice of crying.
Go ahead.
There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that have not filled his days.
That's right.
For the child shall die in 100 years old.
They said the child is going to die 100 years old. You're going to still be a baby at this point if you're 100 years old and die. But what?
But the sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed. And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat of the fruit of them.
Okay, because this was part of the curses back in Deuteronomy 28. If they didn't listen, he said, you're going to build houses and not dwell in them. You're going to plant vineyards and not gather the grapes thereof. So at this point, the Lord, when he returned, he's going to turn the captivity of Israel. He's going to put them back where they would have been had they obeyed in the first place. So he said, they shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. Go ahead.
They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For as the days of a tree are the days of my people, and mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands.
Okay, so people are going to be living much longer as they were back in, the times of Genesis. Like Adam lived to be 930. Methuselah, oldest one in the Bible, 969. So when the Lord returned, and Satan is going to be in the bottomless pit at this time for this 1,000 years, we could have read that a little further down when we was in Revelation 20. People going to be living long. Israel going to be, an established people back in the land. And what else?
They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together.
The wolf and the lamb will feed together, not the wolf eating the lamb, which probably would have happened today. What else?
And the lion shall eat straw like the bullock.
See, even back in the beginning when people was living all along, God had given the vegetation to man and to the animals to eat before man started eating meat. And it's going to be like that again when he returns. So he said, the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and what else?
And dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord.
Imagine that. So it's going to be peace on earth. Complete peace. Even the animals ain't going to be killing each other. Let's go over to Isaiah chapter 11. Make sure this is the time that we're looking at, same time frame when the Lord returns. Let's see. Isaiah chapter 11. And pick it up at verse 6. Go ahead.
The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them.
So same thing we were just reading about. We see even the kids going to be able to play with these animals. Go ahead.
And the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den.
So these are poisonous snakes. Little kids going to be able to even play with them. Go ahead.
They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea.
All right, because again, the Lord is going to be here at this time. He's going to set everything back in order. So obviously the world ain't full of the knowledge right now because, we don't even know that the Sabbath represents this, that it points to this. Everybody going to be going to church tomorrow.
Right.
But this is what today represents. This is what it's teaching us about God's plan for mankind. What verse?
Verse 10.
Go ahead.
And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse.
What do you mean a root of Jesse? Because Jesse was David's father, the second king of Israel. And Jesus lets us know he is the root and the offspring of David. Because, again, he came through the lineage of David, through the tribe of Judah. But again, he's the one that even created mankind. So he said he's the root and offspring. He even called himself the root and, what do you say, root and offspring of David and the bright and morning star. It says that in Revelation. So it says, in that day, so this is how we know this: when the Lord returns, there shall be a root of Jesse, go ahead,
which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to which shall the Gentiles see.
Hey, it's going to be like a banner showing who Israel is when Christ returns, because he's going to gather his people. And even the other nations, at this point, they're going to be cleaving unto Israel. Right now, they're trying to get away from us. But they're going to be, it's going to let you know, it say in the Bible, I think it said, 10 men going to be like grabbing the skirt of him as a Jew, and trying to take him back to Israel, to Jerusalem.
I can't believe they're trying to drag us back home.
Not to be a slave.
Yeah.
Because as we're about to read, let's read it anyway. I know it ain't in here. But let's see. Let's see if the Jews is in the land right now. Because now we're dealing with the time when Jesus is here. And what's he going to do? Verse 11.
And it shall come to pass in that day.
In that day, he said, go ahead.
That the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people.
Okay, so now the first time we read about when he brought them out of Egypt, right? But now he say the second time, this is going to be the same time when the cow and the bear is feeding and the wolf and the lamb are dwelling together. That obviously didn't happen in 1948. Alright, so again, Israel, the Lord is going to gather them and bring us back to the land. But now, he said it shall come to pass at that day that the Lord shall set his hand again, the second time, to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from where?
Which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea.
And most of these is black countries, if you don't know. Cush is Ethiopia. Egypt, y'all know. Shinar, that's basically Iraq. Because we scattered all over, in the islands of the sea. This is what he told Israel he was going to do, remove them into all kingdoms, and he's going to be the same one to gather them at this day that the Sabbath is pointing to. Let's go over to Matthew 24. Because obviously now we have read prophecy of the Lord's return, showing that he's going to gather his people at this time. But we're just going to reiterate a little bit that this day, it can't change. Sabbath ain't changed to the first day of the week. It ain't just any day. If it was just any day, this wouldn't even make sense. Matthew chapter 24, and pick it up at verse 1.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
Okay, so now this temple they're looking at, it had been built prior, hundreds of years before, and Herod came and, basically added on to it. It was under construction for like a minute while he was living it. So, this was like, it was brand new pretty much for them. So they showing Jesus, the buildings of the temple. And he let them know that this temple ain't going to stand, ain't going to be here forever. He said, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. I know they got a wall over there, a wailing wall. They try to act like it's part of this original temple. Jesus said, not one stone upon another. So I don't know where that wall came from, but it wasn't part of this temple. But go ahead.
And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world?
So they wanted to know when was the temple going to be destroyed, because a lot of times they was under the impression that that the end of the world was going to happen a lot sooner. They thought even when Jesus, you get to Acts chapter 1, he about to, after he had been crucified and resurrected, he about to ascend back up to the Father. They like, you going to restore the kingdom to Israel now? He like, I ain't even got to worry about it. Like, that ain't for y'all time. You know, he had to tell them, even all throughout the scriptures, you know, they would get near Jerusalem and they'd be thinking it was time for him to do things. He had to let them know he got to, you know, go into the third heaven first. You know, he got to go die and be resurrected first. So they asked him three things. I say that to say because they asked him when the temple was going to be destroyed, which was 70 AD. Only about 35 years or so after Christ died, about 40 years later. They asked when the temple was going to be destroyed, and then they asked what we came here for, the sign of his coming and the end of the world. Go ahead, where we at?
Verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you.
First thing he warned them of was deception. Take heed that no man deceive you. Go ahead.
For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
And this is where the world is at today, right? Because everybody going to be filling up the churches tomorrow, but try to tell them to remember the Sabbath day. They're going to look at you like it don't matter. You tell them you can't do no work today, they look at you like you got 3 heads or something. But again, it's because of this deception. He said, For many shall come in my name, saying that I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Go ahead.
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled.
Hear more and more of that now, huh? Go ahead.
For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, the kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
Okay, so this is what COVID-19 is, right? It's pestilence. All the, you know, the viruses, the bacteria becoming more resistant to antibiotics and to, you know, the treatments that they've been using. You got the bees and stuff. This stuff is all boiling down. It's coming to pass in our time. But he like, this is just the beginning of sorrows. Go ahead and skip down to verse 14 and read.
And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet, by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Alright, so now we're dealing with this abomination of desolation. This ain't even happened yet. We know this is the one the world called an Antichrist. And he said, when you see him stand in the holy place, to flee, right? We read that part yet? What verse you at?
I just finished verse 15.
Alright, go ahead.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes.
Alright, because this is urgent. It's going to be the worst time the world has ever gone through. Go ahead.
And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter,
Not in the winter, or what?
neither on the Sabbath
Not
day.
on the Sabbath day. Still talking about the Sabbath day? Before the end of the world. That's what they asked him, right? In the beginning of this chapter. What's the sign of your coming and the end of the world? He started running it down. And now we get to right before the end. It's the same time we was reading about earlier in the lesson, this great tribulation, because we read about some of the people that died during this time, right? We read about those that hadn't worshipped the beast nor his image. That's all going to take place during this great tribulation. So he's telling them to flee right before this time. And he says, but pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Again, Sabbath day is still good, all the way down to the end of the world. Go ahead.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be.
All right, let's go over to Luke chapter 4. So we see Sabbath ain't changed in the Bible. And you know what Christian means to be Christ-like. So let's go and take a look at what Christ did. Luke chapter 4. In profane, the word Christianity, the practice of it so badly, people don't even want to use it no more when they learn the truth. I talked to somebody the other day, it was like, I think it was, I forget, was it this Hebrew brother from New York or the brother I was trying to bring into the truth, me and this other one going at it because he, hate white man and all that. And I'm like, bro, that ain't biblical. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get my man, he's Puerto Rican, to not listen. I'm like, don't even fall into that, all that hate. Because, Christ even said to love your enemies. So what you going to do with that, as Brother Stan would say. But, where we at? Luke 4.
Verse 14.
Yeah, go ahead. I ain't going to talk the other day.
And Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee, and there went out a fame of him through all the region round about. And he taught in their synagogues, being glorified of all.
Go ahead.
And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was,
it says, so this is what Jesus did on the regular. He was keeping the Sabbath day. What did he do?
He went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read.
Again, this is what Christ did. So I was telling him, brother, it ain't nothing wrong with Christian because it means Christ-like. It's just that everybody call themselves that doing something different. It mean a follower of Christ. This is what Jesus did. He went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. And what?
And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord.
Okay, so he gave him the book of Isaiah. He's reading from Isaiah chapter 61. And what? Verse 20.
And he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister, and sat down. And with eyes of all them that were in the synagogue were fastened on him.
Go ahead.
And he began to say unto them, This day is the scripture fulfilled in your ears.
And this is what the Bible means, because he said in Matthew chapter 5, that think not that I've come to destroy the law or the prophets, right? He said, I came not to destroy, but to fulfill. This is what it meant. It's the things that were written of him, he came to do. And there's still more that he got to do at his second coming, as we even read in Isaiah, right? He's going to gather Israel that day. He's going to set his hand and recover his people the second time. So it's still more that he has to do. But people take that, they say, when they read that Matthew 5, he fulfilled it all. He did, like, he just said he didn't come to destroy the law and the prophets. This is what he means. Whatever was written, that's what he came to do. So that's why he closed the book right there, because the next part of that verse said something about the year of vengeance and the time of recompense, and it wasn't time for that yet. He talked about the payback at his second coming. He closed it right in the middle of the verse. Said, this day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. But we see what day he went into the synagogue and stood up to read this on. So let's go over to Matthew chapter 12. And when you're ready, pick it up at verse 1. Matthew 12 and verse 1.
At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were in hunger, and began to pluck the ears of corn, and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day.
See, they didn't even recognize who they were dealing with. It's the same one that gave Moses the Sabbath day to begin with. They didn't have a clue. So he said, the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is unlawful. I can't read a law in here to say you can't pick some corn. But we saw how the Lord was teaching Israel to prepare for the Sabbath, not to boil or seethe on that day. But, the Pharisees had a habit of just coming up with their own laws and trying to, apply it. That's why you can read about a Sabbath day's journey in the Bible. You're like, well, what is you don't read that in the law, but that's something that they came up with, amount of distance that you could travel on a Sabbath. I think it was like a couple miles. But, this was something that they came up with. So they said, why? Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. Go ahead.
But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was in hunger, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God, and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests?
Because you can read about this. When David went and ate this bread, it was only for the priests to eat. So he bringing up a couple examples, because they really don't know who he is. And we go here because people try to use scriptures like this to say, well, I ain't got to keep the Sabbath day. Look what Jesus said. We don't understand this. Go ahead.
Or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless?
But even on the Sabbath, the priests had to still keep the fire burning. Really just, God said not to kindle no fire, but we know he had a fire in the temple that was supposed to burn continually. Go ahead.
But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice.
What do you mean I will have mercy and not sacrifice? Because again, Christ lets us know that the Father done appointed all judgment unto him. He's the one that's going to judge. That white throne judgment, a lot of people think that's the Father. Christ lets you know that's him. He's going to handle the judgment of mankind. But he's the Son of Man. That's why he came and was tempted and tested in all points. Even directly by Satan. Ain't nobody been tempted by Satan since the Garden of Eden. But Christ had to come and be tested in all points so he could be a faithful high priest. So that's what he letting them know, kind of, because he said at verse 7, but if he had known what this meaneth, he said, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. That he going to be the one judging these people. Go ahead.
You would not have condemned the guiltless, for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day.
So of course he's Lord of the Sabbath day again. And we ain't going to get into it in the lesson, but this was the God of the Old Testament. He the one that gave Moses the Sabbath day, along with the rest of the commandments. So he knows exactly what's lawful and unlawful to do on the Sabbath day. Go ahead.
And when he was departed thence, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man which had his hand withered. And they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days? That they might accuse him?
Go ahead.
And he said unto them, What man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore is it lawful to do well on the Sabbath days?
So he's letting them know it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Go ahead.
Then saith he to the man, Stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole, like as the other.
All right, let me see what type of well he was healing the man. Because, people are trying to take anything out of context. You know what I'm saying? They'll make everything into doing well on the Sabbath day. But he's healing the man's hand, and they trying to accuse him of breaking the Sabbath day for that. Because people will go here and be like, see, Jesus said he's Lord of the Sabbath, not even understanding. He was God back in the Old Testament. He the one that gave the Sabbath day unto man. He was with that, let us make man in our image, back in Genesis chapter 1. That was Christ there with the Father. Lets us know that in the New Testament. So, he said, it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Go ahead.
Then saith he to the man, Stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole, like as the other.
14.
Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him, how they might destroy him.
They didn't have a clue who Jesus was. And some of them kind of, they mentioned it, like, hey, we shouldn't be, but, this had to be fulfilled. It was written. Let's go over to Matthew 28. Matthew chapter 28. Because this is where, if you look up Sunday, a lot of books will tell you that, well, this is where the Christian Sabbath is Sunday, and this is where it changed right here. Christ resurrected on Sunday. We're going to find out if that's what the Bible says. Matthew chapter 28, we're looking at the resurrection of Christ. Pick it up at verse 1.
In the end of the Sabbath.
In the end of what?
In the end of the Sabbath.
Okay, which is the seventh day of the week, right? Go ahead.
As it began to dawn toward the first day of the week.
So as it began to dawn toward Sunday, you could read in another place to say, while it was yet dark, came who?
Came Mary Magdalene, and the other Mary to see the sepulchre.
Okay, so they're the first ones to get to the tomb or sepulchre of Christ. Go ahead.
And behold, there was a great earthquake. For the angel of the Lord descended from heaven, and came and rolled back the stone from the door, and sat upon it.
What else?
His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake, and became as dead men. And the angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye. For I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified. He is not here.
Read that again.
He is not here.
He was already gone. You can't read nowhere in the Bible he rose on Easter Sunday morning. Because then they even try to say he rose in the morning. Because they try to make it about the sun, the S-U-N. Ain't got nothing to do with Christ. Because mind you, this was 3 days and 3 nights after he was crucified. That's how long he said he was going to be in the grave. For 3 days and 3 nights. But yet, every Easter, they say he died on Good Friday and rose Easter Sunday. Because again, we ain't even going to get into that. But they get mixed up because the day that the bodies, it said the bodies had to be off the cross. Because that next day, he died on the Passover. The next day, it says, was a high Sabbath. So they just look at Sabbath and say, oh, it must have been, the next day must have been Saturday. So he died on a Friday. It wouldn't even line up with this scripture though. If it was, so what they don't understand, the Passover is not a Sabbath day. It's one of God's holy days. He never calls it a Sabbath. And that's the day Christ died on. The following day is a high Sabbath day. It would have been the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So that might be why they get Good Friday. But anyway, he was gone by Sunday. This is what we read. So Sabbath didn't change. Even if he would have rose on Sunday, does that mean it changed? The Lord has told us over and over in the Bible about the Sabbath day. What you can do, what not to do. How does him rising on Sunday, if that's what happened, which we're clearly reading is not, how would that mean that the Sabbath changed to Sunday? Again, people just trying to justify them doing what they want to do. That's why the justification don't make sense. But the angel told her, he is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where the Lord lay. Let's go over to Acts. So now it didn't change right there. It didn't raise on Sunday. Let's see some years later what they was doing. The followers of Christ. Let's see if they was keeping Sunday, trying to make that whole. Acts 13. And verse 13. When you get there, go ahead.
Now when Paul and his company loosed from Paphos, they came to Perga in Pamphylia, and John, departing from them, returned to Jerusalem. But when they departed from Perga, they came to Antioch in Pisidia, and went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and sat down.
On what day?
On the Sabbath day.
Still keeping the Sabbath in the synagogue. That's what Christ did, right? And what they do?
And after the reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue sent unto them, saying, Ye men and brethren, if ye have any word of exhortation for the people, say on.
Okay, so it wasn't no Acts 13 and 15 right now. They was reading the Old Testament. It said after the reading of the law and the prophets, same thing Jesus was doing in Luke 4. And he said, the rulers of the synagogue sent unto them, saying, Ye men and brethren, if you have any word of exhortation for the people, say on. Go ahead.
Then people stood up. Then Paul stood up, and beckoning with his hand said, Men of Israel, and ye that fear God, give audience.
Skip down to verse 26 and go ahead.
What men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham, and whosoever among you feareth God, to you is the word of this salvation sent. For they that dwell at Jerusalem and their rulers, because they knew him not.
Yeah, we already seen that. Didn't have a clue who Christ was. That's what he's talking about. Go ahead.
Nor yet the voices of the prophets, which are read every Sabbath day. Every Sabbath day.
Go ahead.
They have fulfilled them in condemning him.
You said, hey, they didn't know who Christ was, and they didn't know the voices of the prophets, which was read every Sabbath day. They should have known this stuff. But we see ain't nothing changed. Years later, again, after Christ's resurrection, They still going into the synagogue and reading the law. Go ahead.
And though they found no cause of death in him, yet desired they Pilate that he should be slain. And when they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree and laid him in the sepulchre. But God raised him from the dead.
Yes, sir. Skip down to 42 and read.
And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath.
The next what?
The next Sabbath.
The next Sabbath. And what happened?
Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who speaking to them persuaded them to continue in the grace of God. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of God.
So again, this is much later and ain't nothing changed. We know when the Sabbath day changed, we can look in history and see when man tried to change it in 321 AD. And it was a Roman emperor that worshipped the sun, the S-U-N. Sol Invictus, that's the Roman version of the sun god, the unconquered sun, S-U-N. 321 AD, Roman Emperor Constantine even had Sol Invictus on the money that they used during his era. So it wasn't nothing to do with Jesus. We see what his disciples were doing years later. Go ahead.
But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of God should first have been spoken to you.
Oh, but did it end there? Let's see.
But seeing ye put it from you, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles.
So we turn to the other nations, in other words. So again, God had to come and teach Israel because it was their job to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation, as we read back in Exodus 19. But now was the time when Israel, he had told them they could go out and teach all nations. That's one of the things he said in Matthew 28. Whereas prior to that, he had told them, hey, don't go into the way of the Gentiles or any of the cities of the Samaritans. He said, just go to the lost sheep of Israel. But in Matthew 28, after his resurrection, he said, now you can go and teach all nations. And it's what he woke up Paul to go and do. As we read, so he said, hey, being that y'all judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. Acts 17 and verse 1. And when you get there, go ahead.
Now when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica. There was a synagogue of the Jews, and Paul, as his manner was.
So we didn't just catch him one Sabbath day, like, out of the ordinary. He says, as his manner was, go ahead.
Went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures, opening and alleging that Christ must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead, and that this Jesus, whom I preach unto you, is Christ.
Alright, so that was the lesson, the 7th day, Sabbath of rest, and what it represents. Hope you got some understanding in Jesus' name. Alright, I don't know if we have the announcements yet, but we have anything? I know we opened up in DC today. Praise God. I don't know. We know where we're going to be at next weekend. Are we still up here? Okay. Look like we're still here at 500 Stevens Drive, Philadelphia. Next week, 12:30. Thank you. And I think that's all. Can't think of anything else. So we'll have Q&A starting at let's say at 3:45. And if nothing else, we're gonna stand and face Jerusalem and close out.
Our Father which art in heaven,
Our Father which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come,
Thy kingdom come,
thy will be done in earth,
thy will be done in earth,
as it is in
as
heaven.
it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread,
Give us this day our daily bread,
and forgive us our debts,
and forgive us our debts,
as we forgive our debtors.
as we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation,
And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil.
but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom,
Thine is the kingdom,
and the power,
and the power,
and the glory forever.
and the glory forever.
Praise the Lord,
Praise the Lord,
for he is good,
for he is good,
and his mercy endures forever.
and his mercy endures forever.
Praise the Lord God of Israel,
Praise the Lord, God of
for
Israel,
he is
for
good,
he is good,
and his mercy endures forever.
and his mercy endures forever.
These things we pray in Jesus' name,
These things we pray in Jesus' name.
the mighty one of Israel,
Mighty one of
the
Israel,
holy one of Jacob,
the Holy One of Jacob,
the King of
the
kings,
King of kings,
and Lord of lords,
Lord of lords,
and there is no other.
and there is no other.
In Jesus' name,
In Jesus' name,
amen.
amen.
Hallelujah!
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 In Jesus' name.
In
In
Jesus'
Jesus'
name.
name,
Amen.
amen.
Not only the sound, breathing it in. You can fucking do that too. Yeah.